The bowl of hot soup hit my chest before I could even react. The liquid soaked my shirt, burning my skin through the fabric. My son Michael stood in front of me with eyes full of contempt. "You are a dead weight, Dad. A damn burden that is good for nothing anymore." His words hurt more than the boiling soup. I stood there in my own kitchen, the kitchen I had built, feeling the liquid run down my chest, while my daughter-in-law, Jessica, laughed from the living room. I said nothing. I just cleaned myself up in silence and went up to my room. But that night, while they celebrated downstairs with champagne and laughter, I stayed awake planning something that would change everything. And when dawn came, Michael checked his phone and saw the bank notification. When his face went from arrogance to absolute paleness, when he looked at me with pure terror in his eyes, I knew I had won. In a single second, all his pride fell to the floor and shattered into pieces. But before I tell you how I humiliated my own son the same way he humiliated me, I need you to help me with something. Leave me a comment down below and tell me what city or country you are listening from. I want to know if stories like this, where children betray their parents for money, happen only here, or if it is something that happens all over the world. My name is Robert Miller. I am 62 years old, and I was born in Chicago in a working-class neighborhood where dirt roads turned to mud every rainy season. My father worked in a foundry. My mother cleaned other people's houses. We were poor, but we had something many rich families do not have: honor, values, respect. My father taught me that a man is measured by his word, by his work, by how he treats others. And I lived my whole life following those teachings. I started working at 14, delivering newspapers before going to school. At 18, while my friends were getting drunk on weekends, I was taking night courses in administration. At 23, with a loan that took me 10 years to pay off, I opened my first business, a small hardware store on a corner of the neighborhood. I worked 18 hours a day for years, no vacations, no breaks, no complaints. I married Mary when I was 26. She was a secretary at a school, a good woman, hard-working, with simple dreams. We loved each other deeply. Michael was born 2 years later. He was our only son. Mary had complications during childbirth, and the doctors told us we could not have any more. So Michael became the center of our world, our only son, our future, our everything. I gave him the best: private schools, extra classes, educational trips, everything I never had. Mary would tell me sometimes, "Robert, you are spoiling him. He needs to learn to work, to value things." But I did not listen. I thought I was being a good father. I thought giving him everything was love. The hardware store grew. In 10 years, I had 3 branches. In 20 years, I had expanded the business to wholesale construction materials. I built warehouses, secured contracts with large construction firms, built a distribution network across the entire state. At 50, I owned a company worth over $2 million. I was not the richest man in Chicago, but I was not poor either. I had achieved something my father could never have imagined. Mary died 4 years ago, ovarian cancer that spread too fast. The last few months were agony. Michael barely came to see her. He always had excuses: work, commitments, stress. Mary died asking me to take care of our son, to not leave him alone. "He is weak, Robert," she told me on her deathbed. "Michael is weak and needs you to guide him." I promised her I would. It was the last promise I made to her. After Mary's death, I fell into a deep depression. Michael offered to help me with the company. "Dad, you are too old to handle everything alone," he would tell me. "Let me take care of some things. You need to rest." And I, being stupid and weakened by grief, accepted. I gave him access to the accounts. I made him my legal proxy on some contracts. I transferred the administration of 2 warehouses to him, all because I thought he was being responsible, that I was preparing the succession, that I was keeping my promise to Mary. Michael had married Jessica 2 years prior. She came from a local family that pretended to have money, but actually lived on appearances. Her father was a businessman, but I knew he was broke. Her mother was one of those women who measure people by the brand of their purse. From the beginning, Jessica gave me a bad feeling. The way she talked about money, about properties, about investments. The way she looked at my house, calculating and evaluating. Is all this yours, father-in-law? She asked me the first time she came to dinner. We were in the residence I had built in a nice suburb. The house had 4 bedrooms, a large garden, a pool. Nothing ostentatious, but comfortable. I built it 15 years ago, I told her, when the business started doing well. It must be worth about $1 million. Now, she said, without any shame, this area has appreciated a lot. Mary, who was still alive, then squeezed my hand under the table. Later, she told me that girl only sees dollar signs, so be careful. But Michael was in love, or at least that is what I thought. Now I understand he was trapped. Jessica had wrapped him up with her beauty, with promises, with a life of luxury she wanted and believed I was going to finance. After Mary died, things changed drastically. Michael and Jessica moved into my house to keep me company. They said you should not be alone in this big house. At first, it seemed like a good idea because the house felt empty without Mary. Having my son close comforted me, but soon the signs started. Small at first. Jessica reorganized the kitchen without asking me. It was too outdated, father-in-law. It needed modernizing. They bought new furniture for the living room. The old ones were too worn out. They changed the curtains, the paintings, the plants in the garden. Little by little, my house stopped being my house. It became their house. Michael started arriving late to the company offices. When I asked him about the reports, he would tell me I have it under control. Dad, do not worry. But the numbers did not add up. Profits were down. Inventories did not match. 6 months ago, I started noticing strange withdrawals from the company accounts. Not huge amounts, but constant. $2,000 here, $4,000 there. When I asked Michael, he told me they were normal operating expenses. Dad, you do not understand how business works now. Everything is more expensive. Costs went up. But I was not stupid. I had managed that company for 30 years. I knew every dollar that came in and went out. Something was wrong. Then came the incident that changed everything. 2 months ago, a man knocked on my door. He was a lawyer. He had documents. Mr. Miller, I am here to notify you that your property on Main Street has been sold. I need you to sign these papers to complete the transfer. I froze. What property on Main Street? The commercial warehouse. Your son, Michael Miller, contacted us 3 months ago to sell it. He said you agreed, but due to your age, it was easier for him to handle the paperwork. I never authorized any sale. I told him, feeling the rage rise in my throat. The lawyer looked uncomfortable. Sir, I have here a power of attorney signed by you, giving your son authority to sell properties in your name. Let me see that. He showed me the document. It was real. It was my signature. But I did not remember signing that. I searched my memory. Then I remembered. 4 months ago, Michael came with a stack of papers. Dad, these are routine company documents. You have to sign them. I was tired that day. I had slept poorly. I signed without reading carefully. Among those papers must have been the power of attorney. This sale is not valid, I told the lawyer. I am going to contest it legally. Mr. Miller, it was completed 2 weeks ago. The money was transferred. The new owners already have the deed. It is going to be very hard to reverse this. The lawyer left. I sat in the living room shaking, not from fear, from fury. My son had robbed me. He had sold one of my properties without my knowledge and kept the money. That warehouse was worth $150,000. That night when Michael got home, I confronted him. Did you sell the warehouse on Main Street? He did not flinch. Yes, Dad. It was a good offer. We needed liquidity for the company. Where is the money? I invested it. In new contracts. I already told you that you have to trust me. I want to see the bank statements. I want to see those contracts. Dad, you are acting paranoid. Do you not trust your own son? Answer the question. Where is the money? Michael stood up. The money is where it needs to be, and if you cannot trust me, then maybe you should consider retiring completely. Let me handle everything, because clearly you are no longer in a condition to make rational decisions." Jessica appeared from the kitchen. "Robert Michael is right. You are getting old. You are confused. Maybe it is time for you to rest and let the young people take control." I looked at both of them, and in that moment I saw the truth. It was not confusion. It was not paranoia. It was a conspiracy. My son and my daughter-in-law were planning to take everything from me, to strip me of my assets, and they had probably been preparing the ground for months, maybe years. I went to my room without saying another word, but that night I did not sleep. I stayed awake thinking and planning, and I decided I needed evidence. I needed to know exactly what they were doing. The next day I hired a private investigator, a retired state trooper named Hank, who had a reputation for being discreet and effective. I explained the situation to him. I need to know what my son is doing with the company money. I need to know if there are more properties he has sold without my knowledge. I need to know everything. "Are you sure, Mr. Miller?" Hank asked me. "Sometimes the truth hurts more than ignorance. I am sure." Hank worked for 3 weeks. The reports he handed me were devastating. Michael had sold not one but 3 of my properties in the last 6 months, totaling $400,000. The money had not gone to the company. It had gone to personal accounts he shared with Jessica. But that was not all. Michael had taken out loans using the company as collateral, loans I did not know about. He had compromised the company assets without my authorization. And the worst part was he had been consulting with lawyers about guardianship proceedings. "What is guardianship?" I asked Hank. "It is a legal process where they declare a person incapable of managing their own affairs. It is generally used with seniors who have dementia or Alzheimer's. If they manage to declare you incompetent, your son can take legal control of all your assets." I ran out of air. My son is trying to declare me insane. Not just trying. He already took the first step. He hired a private psychiatrist to evaluate you. And according to my sources, that psychiatrist is known for producing convenient diagnoses if paid enough. When is that evaluation scheduled? There is no date yet, but they are preparing the ground, saving evidence, probably documenting every time you forget something, every time you get confused, every time you seem disoriented. And then I understood. The last few months, Michael and Jessica had been asking me questions in front of other people. "Dad, do you remember what day it is? Robert, did you take your medicine? Father-in-law, you told us this story yesterday. Do you not remember?" They were building a narrative painting me as a senile old man who could not take care of himself. "I need more evidence," I told Hank. "I need recordings, documents, something that proves all this. That is going to require more invasive methods, wiretaps, access to computers, constant surveillance. It is legal if it is your own house, but it has to be done right. Do whatever you have to do, but I need irrefutable proof." During the next 2 weeks, Hank installed listening devices in the house, microphones in the living room, in the dining room, in the room Michael and Jessica used. He also installed small, almost invisible cameras and discreetly hacked Jessica's phone. All legal because it was my house, my property. The recordings we obtained were worse than I imagined. One night I heard this. It was Jessica. "We almost have him. When the psychiatrist evaluates him and declares him incompetent, we can sell everything. The house, the warehouses, the company. Everything," Michael asked. "And if he resists?" "If he tries to fight legally," Jessica replied, "he cannot. Once they declare him incompetent, he has no legal power. You will be his guardian. You will be able to do whatever you want. We can even put him in a nursing home if he gets difficult," Michael said. "I do not know if I can do that." "He is my father," Jessica snapped back. "He is a stubborn old man clinging to an empire he can no longer handle. We are doing the right thing, and when we have all the money, When we are living the life we deserve, you will thank me." There was silence. Then Michael said, "You are right. It is time I take what belongs to me." I listened to that recording 3 times. Every word was a stab wound. My son, the boy I had carried on my shoulders, who I had taught to ride a bike, for whom I had sacrificed everything. He was planning to rob me, lock me up, and leave me to die alone in a home. But I did not cry. I did not fall apart. Instead, I called my lawyer, Arthur Davidson, a 60-year-old man who had handled my legal affairs for 2 decades. I showed him everything: the recordings, the documents of the fraudulent sales, the consultations with the psychiatrist, the illegal loans. Arthur listened to everything with a serious face. "Robert, this is enough to put your son in jail. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy to commit theft. We are talking about several years in prison." "I do not want to put him in jail," I said. "Not yet. First, I want him to feel what I felt. I want him to understand what it is like to lose everything. And after that, when he is broken, when he is desperate, then we will make decisions." Arthur looked at me for a long time. "What do you have in mind?" I explained my plan. It was risky. It required perfect timing. But if it worked, Michael and Jessica would not only lose everything, they would learn a lesson they would never forget. "It is cruel," said Arthur. "Not as cruel as planning to lock your father in an asylum to steal everything he has." Arthur nodded. "All right, I will help you. But we need to act fast. According to the recordings, they are planning the psychiatric evaluation for 2 weeks from now." We worked day and night. Arthur contacted the bank where I had my main accounts. We transferred all liquid assets to new accounts Michael did not know about. We changed the deeds of the properties I still kept putting them in a trust he could not touch. We revoked all the powers of attorney I had given him. We removed him as legal representative of the company. Everything legal, everything documented. But we did not tell him anything. We let them go on believing they had control, that their plan was working, that I was the ignorant old man who did not know what they were plotting. Meanwhile, every day that passed, I document more evidence. Every conversation, every movement of money, every lie. 1 week before I executed my final plan, the soup incident happened. That moment I mentioned at the beginning. That moment that changed everything. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was in the kitchen making myself something to eat. A simple chicken soup. One of those Mary taught me to make. Michael and Jessica had gone out early and had just returned. I heard their voices in the living room talking excitedly about something. I walked in with my bowl of soup, thinking I would sit and eat with them in the dining room. Jessica was showing Michael something on her phone. House listings. Expensive houses in exclusive gated communities. "I love this one," she was saying. 5 bedrooms, infinity pool, mountain view. It costs $1.5 million, but with the money from the sale of this house, plus the warehouses, we can pay for it easily. "You're already selling my house," I said from the doorway. Both turned around. Jessica showed no shame. "Robert, this house is too big for one person. When we move you to a place more appropriate for your age, it makes no sense for it to sit empty. I am not going anywhere. This is my house." Michael stood up. "Dad, we already talked about this. You need care. You cannot live alone. It is dangerous. I do not live alone. I live with you two. You moved here, remember? We moved to take care of you," said Jessica with that fake voice. That voice she used when she pretended to worry. "Because you are sick, Robert. You are forgetting things. You get confused. You need professional help. I am not sick. I am perfectly fine." "Oh, really?" Michael walked up to me. "Then why did you ask me 3 times yesterday what day it was? Why did you go to the bank last week and not remember your PIN? Why do you keep telling the same story about when you opened the hardware store, like we have never heard it?" Every question was a lie, but I understood what they were doing. They were acting, rehearsing, preparing the script that they would use in front of the psychiatrist, in front of a judge. "You are lying," I said calmly. "See," Jessica told Michael. "He is paranoid. That is also a symptom. Something inside me broke. Not from sadness, from rage. A cold, contained rage. I want you out of my house, both of you now. Michael laughed. It was a cruel, mocking laugh. Leave, Dad. This is not your house anymore. Not legally? You transferred it to my name 2 months ago, do you not remember? Oh, right. Probably not, because you're senile. That was also a lie. I had never transferred the house, but it was documented in their plans. I had seen it in the recordings. They were preparing fake documents to make it look like I had donated everything voluntarily. I took a step toward them with my bowl of soup still in my hands. Michael, you are my son. I gave you everything. Why are you doing this to me? Why his face twisted into something ugly? Why do I deserve it? Why did I work in your company for years earning pennies while you kept everything? Because I am your only son and all this should be mine anyway. I am just speeding up the inevitable. You worked in my company for 3 years, and I paid you $4,000 a month for doing practically nothing. You call that pennies. I should be earning double or triple. I am the owner's son. You are the son of the owner who never learned the value of work, who never had to sacrifice anything, who thinks he deserves everything just for existing. Jessica stepped in. Enough. Robert, you are upset. You do not know what you are saying. Go to your room and rest. I am not going anywhere. You are the ones leaving. Michael took 2 quick steps toward me. He snatched the bowl from my hands. You know what, old man, I am sick of your attitude. I am sick of your complaints. I am sick of having to pretend I care about you. And then he threw the bowl. The hot soup hit my chest, soaking my shirt, burning my skin. You are a dead weight, Dad. A damn burden that is good for nothing anymore. I stood there frozen. The hot liquid ran down my chest. The bowl had shattered on the floor, and my son looked at me with a hatred so pure I did not recognize him. This was not the boy I had raised. This was a stranger, a monster I had created myself by giving him everything without teaching him anything. Jessica laughed, a sharp, cruel laugh. Oh, Robert, look at the mess you made. Go change. You look like a homeless person. I said nothing. I just turned around and went up the stairs. I heard their voices downstairs, their laughter, the sound of glasses clinking. They were celebrating. Celebrating having humiliated me. Celebrating their victory. I changed my clothes. I cleaned off the soup. And then I sat on my bed, in the room I had shared with Mary for 30 years, and I made a decision. No more waiting, no more collecting evidence. It was time to act. I called Arthur. Tomorrow. Do everything tomorrow. Are you sure once we start, there is no going back? I am sure. I want Michael to see exactly what it feels like to lose everything when the sun comes up. Understood. I will make the necessary calls. That night, I did not sleep. I sat by the window in my room. Looking out at the garden, I could hear Michael and Jessica's voices downstairs. Music, laughter, the sound of champagne being uncorked. They were celebrating, probably toasting to their future, to the money they thought would soon be theirs, to getting rid of the old nuisance that was me. I listened to them until past midnight. Finally, they went up to their room. I heard the door close. And then in the silence of 3 a.m, I went downstairs quietly. I went to my study. I opened the safe that was hidden behind a painting of Mary. I took out all my important documents, deeds, titles, contracts, everything. I put them in a briefcase. Then I took out something else, an envelope Arthur had given me 2 days before. Inside were legal documents, lawsuits, court orders, investigation reports, everything I needed to destroy Michael and Jessica legally. I went back to my room just as the sky began to lighten. I sat on the bed, I took out my phone, and at 6 a.m. sharp, I sent a simple message to Arthur. Proceed. What happened in the next 2 hours was like a perfectly executed military operation. At 6:15, the bank where Michael thought he had access to my accounts started sending him automatic notifications. All accounts had been closed, all money transferred, his access revoked. At 6:30, my accountant's firm sent official notification to Michael that he had been removed from all positions in the company, his credentials canceled, his office access revoked, his name eliminated from all contracts. At 7 sharp, a notary arrived at the house with certified documents, showing that all property deeds had been transferred to an irrevocable trust, of which Michael was not a beneficiary. And at 7:30, a process server delivered a court summons. Michael and Jessica were being sued for fraud, forgery, theft, and conspiracy. They had 72 hours to appear before a judge. I heard Michael's phone ring for the first time at 6:20, then again and again. By 7 in the morning it was ringing constantly. I heard his footsteps rushing down the stairs, his confused voice talking on the phone with the bank. "What do you mean the account is closed? I have authorization. I am the proxy." Silence while he listened to the answer. "Revoked." "When who authorized that?" More silence. Then his voice now with panic. "That is not possible. There has to be a mistake." I dressed slowly. I combed my hair. I put on a clean shirt, and I went down the stairs calmly. Michael was in the living room surrounded by papers, his phone in one hand, his face completely pale. Jessica was next to him, reading the notary's documents with trembling hands. When they saw me come down, both froze. I said nothing. I just walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a coffee calmly. I sat in the dining room, and I waited. Michael was the first to speak. "What did you do?" I took a sip of coffee. "Good morning, son. Did you sleep well? I heard you had a celebration last night. Were you celebrating something special? Answer me. What did you do with the accounts?" "With the company, with the properties. I did what I should have done months ago. Protect what is mine from 2 thieves living under my roof." Jessica approached furiously. "You cannot do this. Michael has legal rights. He is your son. Rights," I stood up. "Rights to rob me. Rights to sell my properties without my permission. Rights to plan to declare me incompetent to keep everything." Michael turned even paler. How do you know that?" "Because I am not the senile old man you think. Because I have been investigating you for weeks. Because I have recordings of every conversation you have had in this house. Every plan. Every lie. Every betrayal." I took out my phone. I pressed play. Their own voices filled the room. "When the psychiatrist evaluates him and declares him incompetent, we can sell everything. We can even put him in a nursing home if he gets difficult. It is time I take what belongs to me." Michael's face went from pale to a greenish tone. Jessica stepped back. "That is illegal. You cannot record us without our consent. I can in my own house. Consult with your lawyers if you do not believe me." I turned off the phone. Now I'm going to explain exactly what is going to happen. 1. Both of you have 3 days to vacate this house. You take nothing you have not paid for with your own money, which is not much considering everything you have is because I paid for it. 2. You are going to face criminal charges for fraud and forgery. My lawyer has already filed the lawsuits. 3. Michael is going to pay back every dollar he stole, every property he sold illegally. 4. If you try to contact me, go near my company, or continue with your plan to declare me incompetent, I will personally ensure you spend the next 10 years in prison. Michael collapsed onto the sofa. "Dad, we. It was not personal. We just needed money. I finished for him. You needed money. For what? For the $1.5 million house. For the luxury cars. For the millionaire life you wanted to have without working for it. You deserved it," exploded Jessica. "You are a selfish old man clinging to his money as if you were going to take it to the grave. Michael is your son. He has a right to enjoy what you built. Michael has a right to what he earns, just like I earned it. Starting from the bottom, working 18 hours a day, sacrificing everything. But he never wanted to do that. He wanted the result without the effort. And you," I pointed at her, "you turned him into this. You poisoned him with your greed." "I woke him up," she said with venom in her voice. He was letting you exploit him, keep him poor while you swam in money. I opened his eyes. You opened his eyes to greed, to betrayal, to becoming a criminal. Michael stood up, wobbling. Dad, please, we can fix this. I will return the money. I will cancel everything. But do not do this to me. Do not destroy me. I looked at him. I saw the child he had been, the young man with potential, and the man he had become, weak, manipulable, greedy. I am not destroying you, Michael. You destroyed yourself the day you decided that stealing from your father was easier than earning his respect. I was never going to earn your respect, he shouted. It was never enough. You always wanted more. More effort, more sacrifice, more work. Nothing I did was good enough, because I gave you everything without you earning it, and when I finally asked you to really work to prove you were worth something, you preferred to steal than to make an effort. That was your choice, not mine. Jessica took Michael by the arm. Let's go. We do not have to listen to this. We will get lawyers. We will fight this. He cannot leave you with nothing. You are his son. There are laws. There are laws, I agreed. And those same laws are going to put you in prison for what you did. They went to their room. I heard them packing furiously. Jessica screaming. Michael trying to calm her down. Frantic phone calls to lawyers. But I knew no lawyer could save them. The evidence was too solid. 2 hours later, they came down with suitcases. Michael did not look at me. Jessica shot me a look of pure hate. This is not over, old man. We are going to destroy you. Try it, I said calmly. But I warn you, I have resources you cannot even imagine. And I have been planning this much longer than you planned to rob me. They left, the door closed, and I was left alone in my house. The house Mary and I built. The house I had been on the verge of losing. I sat on the sofa, and for the first time in months I allowed myself to breathe. I had won. But it did not feel like victory. It felt like loss. Because I had lost my son. Not to death, but to something worse. To his own greed. My phone rang. It was Arthur. Robert, how are you alive? They left. Good. Do you still want to proceed with criminal charges? I hesitated. For a second, just a second, I considered forgiving everything, calling Michael, telling him we could fix this, that if he returned the money and asked for forgiveness, we could try to rebuild our relationship. But then I remembered his words. You are a dead weight, a damn burden that is good for nothing anymore. I remembered the bowl of soup hitting my chest. I remembered the recordings where they planned to lock me in a home, and the doubt disappeared. Yes, I told Arthur with a firm voice. Proceed with everything, no exceptions. Understood. The charges are already filed. The preliminary hearing is in 5 days. Will you be ready to testify? I will be ready. I hung up. I sat in the silence of my empty house, and for the first time in 4 years since Mary died, I cried. Not from sadness, not from rage. I cried for the son I could have had, the son I should have raised better, the son who got lost somewhere between giving him everything and teaching him nothing. The following days were a whirlwind. The news leaked in the business circles of Chicago. Robert Miller sued his own son for fraud. Gossip flew. Some supported me, others criticized me. How can a father do that to his son? They said. But none of them knew the whole truth. None had heard the recordings. None knew my son had planned to steal everything and leave me rotting in a nursing home. Michael hired a lawyer, an expensive one, the kind that appears in commercials promising to defend impossible cases. He'd probably paid with what was left of the stolen money. The lawyer tried to negotiate. He offered that Michael would return all the money if I dropped the charges. No. I told Arthur when he brought me the offer. This is no longer about the money. It is about consequences. It is about him understanding that his actions have a price. Robert, think about it carefully. If this goes to trial, it is going to be public. Everything is going to come out. The recordings, the details of the fraud, the conspiracy. Your name will be in the papers. The company may suffer. Let it suffer. But the truth is going to come out completely. And maybe other parents will learn from my mistake and not spoil their children like I did. The day of the preliminary hearing, I arrived at the courthouse early. Arthur was with me, along with the company accountant and Hank, the private investigator. We brought boxes full of evidence, documents, recordings, photographs, bank records, everything meticulously organized. Michael arrived with Jessica and his lawyer. He looked terrible, sunken eyes gaunt, as if he had not slept in days. Jessica, on the other hand, kept acting defiant. She looked with contempt as they passed us. The judge was a woman of about 50 named Judge Stevens. She had a reputation for being tough but fair. She reviewed the preliminary documents with a serious face. Then she looked at both of us. Mr. Miller, she said, addressing me, are you aware that you are accusing your own son of serious criminal charges that could result in years in prison? Yes, Your Honor, completely aware. And you still wish to proceed? Yes, she turned to Michael. Mr. Michael Miller, how do you plead to the charges of fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to commit theft? Michael's lawyer spoke. Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty to all charges. Furthermore, we are filing a counterclaim. We allege that Mr. Robert Miller suffers from cognitive decline and that my client's actions were taken to protect family assets from irrational decisions. Arthur stood up. Your Honor, that is exactly what the defendant planned to do. Falsely declare my client incompetent to steal his assets. We have recordings where the defendant and his accomplice, Mrs. Jessica Miller, explicitly discuss this plan. Recordings. The judge leaned forward. Obtained legally, completely legal, Your Honor. Recorded in Mr. Miller's own residence, of which he is the sole legal owner. In this state, it is perfectly legal to record on one's own private property. I want to hear those recordings now. Arthur connected his laptop to the room's audio system, and then Michael and Jessica's voices filled the courtroom. When the psychiatrist evaluates him and declares him incompetent, we can sell everything. The house, the warehouses, the company, everything. And if he resists, he cannot. Once they declare him incompetent, he has no legal power. We can even put him in a nursing home if he gets difficult. The silence in the room was absolute. The judge looked at Michael with a mixture of disbelief and disgust. The defense attorney had gone pale. Jessica looked at the floor. Is that your voice, Mr. Michael Miller? Asked the judge. Michael did not answer. His lawyer whispered something in his ear. Finally, with a barely audible voice. Yes, Your Honor, but taken out of context. There is no context, interrupted the judge, that justifies conspiring to falsely declare your father incompetent to rob him. Do you have more recordings, she asked me. We have 17 more recordings, Your Honor, all documenting different aspects of the conspiracy. I want them all, and I want full psychiatric evaluations of Mr. Robert Miller. I want 3 independent psychiatrists to certify his mental state. If he is as incapacitated as the defense alleges, those evaluations will show it. Michael's lawyer tried to protest. Your Honor, that is not. Silence. I also want psychiatric evaluations of your client, because conspiring to steal from your own father suggests some character issues I would like experts to examine. The hearing continues in 2 weeks. By then I want all psychiatric reports and all evidence formally submitted. Court is adjourned. We left the courtroom. Michael tried to approach me in the parking lot. Dad, please, we have to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Everything I need to say to you, I will say in front of the judge. Dad, please. Jessica pressured me. I did not want to. Do not blame me, screamed Jessica. You agreed with everything. You signed the documents, you sold the properties. And there they were, fighting amongst themselves, blaming each other. Exactly what happens when criminals realize they are trapped. I turned around and walked away. He was not worth my breath. The psychiatric evaluations took a week. 3 different psychiatrists, all renowned. They gave me cognitive tests, memory evaluations, behavioral analysis. The results were unanimous. Mr. Robert Miller shows completely normal cognitive function for his age. There are no signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any significant mental deterioration. He is completely capable of managing his affairs. Michael, on the other hand, received less favorable diagnoses. Dependent personality traits, said one. Susceptible to external manipulation, said another. Difficulty establishing appropriate boundaries in personal relationships, concluded the third. While we waited for the next hearing, Hank called me with news. Robert, I found something else. Something you should know. What is it? Jessica has a record. 8 years ago in Texas, she was accused of fraud by an aunt of hers. Apparently, she convinced the aunt to sign documents transferring a property. The aunt accused her of manipulation and forgery. The case was settled out of court. But the pattern is identical to what she did to you. Did Michael know this? I do not know. But I can investigate more. Do it. I want to know everything about Jessica Miller. Her past, her family, everything. What Hank discovered in the following days was revealing. Jessica had a pattern. She had been married twice before Michael. Both marriages to older men with money. The first ended in divorce with her receiving a good amount of cash. The second also ended in divorce, but that man sued her for fraud. Apparently, she had forged his signature on loan documents. That case was also settled out of court. Michael is her third attempt. I told Arthur when I showed him the information, and this time she aimed higher. Not just the husband, but also the rich father-in-law. This changes everything. We can argue that Michael was a victim of manipulation, that Jessica is the true criminal here, and absolve my son of responsibility. No, he chose to follow her. He chose to rob me. He is an adult. He has to pay for his decisions. But Arthur had a point. If Jessica had done this before, if she had a pattern of manipulating and defrauding, then she was more dangerous than I thought, and we needed to expose that too. The second hearing arrived. This time there were more people. The press had picked up the story. Chicago businessman sues his son for conspiracy and fraud. Reporters were waiting for us outside the courthouse. I said nothing. I just walked through them with Arthur by my side. In the courtroom, Arthur presented all the evidence. The 17 complete recordings, the documents of the fraudulent sales, the bank records showing the diversion of money, the forged powers of attorney, and then the new evidence, Jessica's background. Your Honor, said Arthur, Mrs. Jessica Miller has a documented pattern of fraud dating back at least 8 years. She has used marriage as a method to access resources of older men. She has defrauded them and escaped with settlements. In this case, she expanded her operation to include not only her husband, but also her husband's father. Michael's lawyer objected. This is irrelevant. My client knew nothing about his wife's past. Did not know Arthur pulled out another document. We have an email from Mrs. Higgins, Mrs. Miller's mother, to Michael Miller, sent a month before the wedding warning him about her daughter's past behavior. Michael ignored that warning. Michael sank into his chair. Jessica, for the first time, showed real fear on her face. The judge reviewed everything carefully, the recordings, the documents, the background, the psychiatric reports. Finally, she spoke. I have reviewed all the evidence presented. The facts are clear. Michael Miller and Jessica Miller conspired to defraud Robert Miller through document forgery, unauthorized property sales, and a plan to falsely declare him incompetent. The charges are serious, and the evidence is overwhelming. She paused. However, I also see an element of manipulation. Mrs. Miller clearly has experience in this type of fraud. Mr. Michael Miller, although guilty, seems to have been influenced by her. That said, being influenced does not exempt one from legal responsibility. She turned to Michael and Jessica. You have 2 options. Option 1. This goes to full trial. With the evidence I have seen, I guarantee both of you will be found guilty. Michael would face between 5 and 8 years in prison. Mrs. Miller, given her background, and the fact she is the main instigator, would face between 8 and 12 years, the silence was absolute. Option 2. You plead guilty now. You return every stolen dollar. You separate immediately. The divorce must be completed in 6 months. Michael accepts 3 years in prison with possibility of parole after 2 years for good behavior. Mrs. Miller accepts 6 years without possibility of parole, and both sign documents permanently waiving any claim to Mr. Robert Miller's assets. My heart was beating fast. I looked at Michael. He looked back at me. There were tears in his eyes. For the first time in months, I saw something of the person he used to be. Fear, regret, shame, his lawyer whispered in his ear. Jessica also whispered frantically, but Michael stood up. Your Honor, I accept option 2. I plead guilty. Jessica screamed. No, Michael, do not be an idiot. We can fight this. Not any more, he said with a tired voice. I cannot go on with this any more. I did something terrible. I betrayed my father. I deserve to pay for that. Jessica turned to her lawyer. I am not going to plead guilty. I want to go to trial. The judge looked at her coldly. That is your decision, ma'am. But I warn you, without the testimony of your accomplice, who has just accepted guilt, your situation is even worse. The offer of 6 years is generous, considering you could face 12. Jessica looked around the room, at Michael, who had already accepted, at her lawyer, who was shaking his head, at me. This is your fault, she told me with venom. You spoiled him. You made him weak. I just took advantage of what you created. Maybe, I said, but I am free and you are going to prison. So in the end, who is the weak one? She clenched her fists. Finally, with rage barely contained. I accept. I plead guilty. The judge nodded. Good. The sentencing will be formalized in 2 weeks. In the meantime, both will remain under house arrest with monitoring bracelets. You cannot leave the city. You cannot contact each other or Mr. Robert Miller. Understood. Both nodded. The officers handcuffed them and took them for processing. Jessica went out screaming obscenities. Michael went out in silence with his head down. I remained sitting in the courtroom long after everyone left. Arthur sat next to me. You won, Robert. Complete justice. It does not feel like winning, because it is not victory. It is survival. You survived your own family trying to destroy you. That is not winning. It is simply not losing. He was right. I got up. We left the courthouse. The reporters were waiting for us. This time, I stopped. I spoke directly to the cameras. My name is Robert Miller. For 30 years, I built a company from scratch. I gave my son everything I never had, education, opportunities, love, but I failed to teach him the most important thing, the value of work, respect, gratitude. That failure almost cost me everything. Today, my son goes to prison for conspiring to rob me, and although part of me is devastated, another part knows it is necessary, because actions have consequences, and if sharing my story helps a single father not make my mistakes, then the pain was worth it. I did not answer questions. I just left. I got in my car and drove back to my empty house, the house I almost lost, the house where I would now live alone, but with my dignity intact and my assets protected. When I walked in, the silence was absolute. No conspiring voices, no cruel laughter, just silence and peace. The next 2 weeks were final formalities. Michael returned what was left of the stolen money. It was not everything, but it was a significant part. The properties he had sold illegally were more complicated. We had to sue the buyers, arguing the sales were fraudulent. Some cases were settled. Others are still continuing in the courts. But I recovered what was most important. The day of the formal sentencing, I arrived early at the courthouse. Michael was already there, handcuffed, dressed in simple clothes. He looked thinner, older, as if he had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. Jessica was also present, but in a separate room. The judge had ordered they not see each other. Judge Stevens entered. We all stood up. She reviewed the final documents. Then she spoke. Michael Miller, This court finds you guilty of aggravated fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to commit theft. You are sentenced to 3 years in prison at the State Correctional Center. You will be eligible for parole after serving 2 years, subject to good behavior and positive psychological evaluations. Michael nodded, accepting the sentence. The judge continued, Jessica Miller, this court finds you guilty of aggravated fraud, document forgery, conspiracy to commit theft and recurring criminal conspiracy, given your background. You're sentenced to 6 years in prison at the Women's Correctional Facility without possibility of parole. Jessica exploded. This is unfair. He is just as guilty as I am. Why do I get more years? Because you said, the judge, with a voice of steel, have a pattern of criminal behavior dating back years. Because you manipulated a vulnerable man to commit crimes against his own father. Because you have shown not a shred of regret. And because this court believes you are a danger to society. Michael Miller at least had the decency to accept his guilt and show remorse. You have only shown rage at getting caught. The officers took Jessica away while she shouted threats. Michael stood waiting to be taken too. Before the officers moved him, he looked at me. He opened his mouth as if to say something. Then he simply bowed his head in a gesture of shame and let himself be taken. Arthur put his hand on my shoulder. It is over, Robert. Finally, it is over. Is it over? I repeated the question more for myself than for him. I do not know if these kinds of things ever end. We left the courthouse. This time there were fewer reporters. The story was no longer as interesting now that everything was resolved. A few asked us questions. Arthur gave them a formal statement. Justice has been served. Mr. Miller is satisfied with the outcome and hopes to rebuild his life in peace. But peace did not come immediately. The following weeks were strange. I woke up early, as I had always done. I went to the office, worked, but something had changed. The company no longer filled me like before. The numbers in the reports, the meetings, the contracts, everything seemed empty. I had won the legal battle, I had protected my wealth, but I had lost my son. A month after the sentencing, I received a letter. It was from Michael. The prison allowed limited correspondence. The handwriting was shaky, as if he had written and rewritten it several times. Dad, I do not expect you to read this. I do not expect you to answer me, but I need to write it anyway. You were right about everything. I was weak. I was greedy. I let Jessica convince me I deserved things I had not earned. And worse, I let her convince me to betray you. Every day here in this cell, I think about what I did, about how I threw that soup at you, about the terrible things I said, about how I planned to steal everything from you, and the shame consumes me. Mom would have hated me. She loved you so much. She admired you so much, and I betrayed that memory. I betrayed everything she taught me. I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I just want you to know that I finally understand. I understand what you worked for to build everything. I understand the sacrifices you made. I understand that giving me everything without teaching me to value it was your mistake. But taking advantage of it was mine. The other prisoners here ask why I'm inside. When I tell them I tried to steal from my father, they look at me with contempt. Even criminals have codes, and betraying family is unforgivable. I have 2 years here if I behave. 2 years to think about who I want to be when I get out. Not the man I was, not the son who defrauded you. Someone new. Someone better. I know I can never repair what I broke. I know our relationship died the day I called you a dead weight, but if someday when I get out there is any chance you could look at me without hate, that would be enough. Your son, Michael. I read the letter 3 times. Every word was like a wound reopening, but there was also something there. Something I had not seen in months. Genuine regret. Not the regret of getting caught, but the regret of having failed as a human being. I did not answer immediately. I needed time. I needed to process my own feelings, because part of me was still furious. Another part was heartbroken. And a small part very small, had hope that maybe, just maybe, my son could really change. 3 months after the sentencing, Mrs. Higgins, Jessica's mother, came to see me. She called first, asking for permission. I almost told her no, but something in her voice, something of genuine desperation, made me accept. We met at a neutral coffee shop. She looked devastated, older than I remembered. "Mr. Miller, thank you for seeing me. I know I am the last thing you want to see. Why are you here, Mrs. Higgins?" "To apologize. For my daughter. For not stopping her when I saw the signs. For not warning you before it was too late. You warned him. After everything exploded, that helped. But I should have done it before. Much before." Tears rolled down her face. Jessica was always difficult since she was a child. Her father spoiled her terribly. When he died, she got worse. She started lying and manipulating. I tried to correct her, but it was too late. She was already formed. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Michael came to see me before going to prison. He asked me if his mother had told me anything about him when he was a child. I told him the truth. Mary used to tell me Michael was a good boy, but that you spoiled him too much. That she was afraid he would grow up without learning to value things." The words hit me like a punch. Mary had said it. She had warned. And I did not listen. Mrs. Higgins continued. "Michael told me. My father gave me everything except the ability to earn it, and I paid him with betrayal. Mr. Miller, your son is broken. He is truly sorry. And I know I have no right to ask you this, but is there any chance that when he gets out, you could give him another opportunity, not to recover his money or his position, just to recover his dignity?" "I do not know," I said honestly. "The pain is too recent, the betrayal too deep. I understand, just think about it. My daughter is a lost cause, but Michael is not. There is still time for him." She left. I stayed with my cold coffee, thinking about her words. Was there time? Could I really forgive something so terrible? 6 months passed, then a year. Michael wrote letters every month. At first I did not answer them. I read them. I kept them. But I did not answer. In his letters he told me about life in prison, about the jobs he did, about the classes he was taking. Basic education first, because he realized that, although he had a university degree, he did not know how to do anything practical. Then carpentry, plumbing, electricity. "I am learning to work with my hands," he wrote in a letter. "Like you did, like I should have done since I was young. Here it does not matter who you were outside, it matters who you are inside, and I am trying to be someone Mom could be proud of." In the 13th month, I finally answered. A short letter. "Michael, I have read all your letters. I see you are trying to change. That is good. But real change is proven with sustained actions, not with words on paper. When you get out, if you get out, you will have to rebuild your life from scratch. Without my money, without my help. If you have truly learned the lessons prison is teaching you, you will be able to do it. If in 2 years, when you are eligible for parole, you have maintained your good behavior, I will consider seeing you. Once. No promises, no guarantees. That is all I can offer you now. Your father, Robert." His response arrived a week later. It just said, "Thank you. It is more than I deserve." Time passed. The company kept running. I hired a new general manager, someone with no family connection, someone who earned the position by merit. The warehouses operated well. Contracts kept coming. But I started working less, delegating more. At 63, I was finally learning to rest. I did something I had never done. I took a vacation. I traveled to places Mary always wanted to see, but we never could because I was too busy working. Arizona, the Grand Canyon, Hawaii, and in every place I spoke to Mary. I told her what I saw. I asked for forgiveness for not taking her when she was alive. I asked for guidance on what to do with Michael. One day on a beach in Florida, sitting watching the sunset, I felt something. It was not dramatic. It was not a voice or a divine sign. It was just a feeling, a quiet certainty that Mary would want me to give our son another chance. Not to recover what he lost, but to build something new, something real. Month 24 arrived. Michael was eligible for parole. I attended the hearing. I had not been in front of him in 2 years. When they brought him in, I almost did not recognize him. He was thinner but stronger, muscles from real physical work, short hair, weathered face, and something in his eyes was different. There was no arrogance anymore, only humility. The parole board reviewed his case. The prison director spoke. Michael Miller has been a model prisoner. He worked in the carpentry shop. He took all available classes. He helped other prisoners with literacy. He has not had a single disciplinary incident. I recommend him for parole, the prison psychologist added. I have worked with Mr. Miller for 2 years. He has shown genuine psychological growth. He has accepted complete responsibility for his actions. He has worked on his codependency issues and establishing healthy boundaries. I believe he is ready to reintegrate into society. They asked me to speak. I stood up. All eyes were on me. My son betrayed me in the worst way possible. He conspired to rob me, to declare me incompetent, to lock me up. For months I lived with fear in my own house. The emotional damage was immense. I saw Michael bow his head, but I continued. I have read every letter he wrote me. I have seen the reports of his behavior. And I see someone who is genuinely trying to change. I cannot say I have forgiven him. That process takes time. But I can say I am willing to give him a chance to prove that the man who betrayed his father no longer exists. The committee deliberated for 30 minutes. They returned with their decision. Parole approved. Michael Miller will be released with the following conditions. He must maintain stable employment. He must attend monthly therapy. He must report weekly to his parole officer. And he is prohibited from approaching Jessica Miller or having any contact with her. Any violation of these conditions will result in immediate return to prison. Michael was released 3 days later. I did not go to pick him up. I had made it clear he would have to make it on his own. But I did leave him something with his parole officer. The address of a small apartment I had rented for 6 months, paid in advance, furnished basically, and a note. This is the last thing you receive from me without earning it. From now on, everything you have will be because you worked for it. 3 months passed without us having contact. I knew from his parole officer that he had gotten a job in a carpentry shop, that he was attending therapy, that he was complying with all conditions. But he did not look for me, and I did not look for him. Then one Saturday morning I heard a knock on my door. I opened it. It was Michael. He was wearing work clothes, stained with sawdust. In his hands he held something wrapped in cloth. "Hello, Dad," he said with a trembling voice. "I know I did not have permission to come. I can leave if you want, but I made something I wanted to give you." He unwrapped the cloth. It was a box, a beautifully carved wooden box. On the lid was engraved, "For the man who gave me everything and whom I paid with nothing, with eternal regret and hope for redemption. Michael." "I made it in the prison workshop," he said. "It took me 6 months. Every night after work, I carved a little more. It is for Mom's ashes. I know you have kept them in that simple funeral urn. I thought she deserved something better, something made with love. I took the box. It was beautiful. The work was professional, careful, every detail, perfect. You made this?" "Yes. It is the first thing I have made with my own hands that I am proud of." I looked at him, at my son, at the man who had betrayed me, and at the man who was trying to be better. "Do you want to come in?" He hesitated. "Are you sure? No. But do it anyway." We went in. I served him coffee. We sat in the living room, the same place where 2 years before he had called me a dead weight and thrown hot soup at me. The silence was awkward. Finally, Michael spoke. "I did not come to ask for forgiveness again. I know you are tired of hearing it. I came to show you I am changing. I have a job. I make minimum wage. It is pennies compared to what I had, but it is mine. I earned it. And for the first time in my life, that feels good. And Jessica. I have had no contact with her. I never will. My therapist says she represented everything worst in me: my greed, my weakness, my lack of values. Letting her go was like letting go of the worst version of myself. I took a sip of coffee. And now what? What do you want from me? Nothing, he said firmly. I do not want your money. I do not want a job in your company. I do not want you to forgive me if you are not ready. I just want you to know that the son you betrayed is dead. He died in that prison cell. And the man who is here now is trying to honor your name, living like you lived, working hard, being honest, earning every dollar. I felt something loosen in my chest, something that had been tight for 2 years. It is going to take time, Michael. I cannot simply forget everything that happened. I know. I do not expect you to. I just hope that someday you can look at me without seeing the traitor, that you can see the man I am becoming. We stayed talking for 2 hours. He told me about the workshop where he worked, about the pieces he was learning to make, about the plans he had to maybe someday have his own small business, not an empire, just an honest shop where he could work with his hands. When he left, I stayed with the box he had carved. I opened it. Inside, he had engraved another message. Mom, forgive me for not being the son you deserved. Dad, thank you for not giving up on me when I gave up on you. That night, I transferred Mary's ashes from the simple urn to the carved box, and as I did it, I spoke to her. Mary, our son, is trying. I do not know if we will ever be father and son again, but at least there is hope. And maybe that is enough for now. Today, 3 years have passed since that night when I told Michael he had lost everything. 3 years since I saw his arrogance fall when he saw the bank notice. Michael now has his own small workshop. He makes custom furniture. He earns enough to live modestly. We see each other once a month for dinner. The conversations are still a little tense, a little awkward, but they are honest. I never gave him back access to my money. I never gave him a position in my company, and I never will because he does not need it, and I learned the most important lesson of all. Giving everything to someone without teaching them to earn it is not love. It is condemning them to failure. Jessica got out of prison last month after serving her full sentence. She tried to contact Michael. He blocked her immediately and reported the contact to his officer. The last I heard of her, she was back in Texas, living with her mother without a job, with her reputation destroyed. Sometimes I think about her, not with hate, with pity, because living your whole life seeing people as objects to exploit must be an empty existence. Have I forgiven Michael completely? No, I am not sure I ever can. But I have learned to live with what happened. I have learned to see the progress he is making. And I have learned that sometimes a father's love is not giving everything. Sometimes it is letting your son fall, so he learns to get up alone. If there is anything I want other parents to learn from my story, it is this. Do not make my mistake. Do not give everything to your children without teaching them to value it. Do not protect them from the consequences of their actions. Do not sacrifice your own well-being for their comfort, because in the end you are not doing them a favor. You are preparing them for failure. And if you are the children, if you recognize yourselves in Michael, if you have betrayed your parents, for greed, for weakness, for any reason, know this. It is never too late to change, but the change has to be real, not words, actions, years of consistent actions that prove you are different. Family betrayal is the worst of all because it comes from where you least expect it, from the people who are supposed to owe you loyalty. But redemption is also possible, just that it takes time, a lot of time, and work, a lot of work. I am 65 years old now. My hair is completely white. My hands are no longer as strong as before, but my spirit is intact. My dignity is intact. And my company keeps running, now under the command of competent people who earn their place. Was the pain worth it? Was it worth losing 2 years of my life, fighting legally with my own son? I look at the carved box where Mary's ashes rest. I look at the reports of how Michael is building his life from scratch, honestly. And I think, yes, it was worth it. Because if I had not acted, if I had let the betrayal continue, I would have lost much more than money. I would have lost my soul. So to everyone listening to this story, I leave you with this. Defend your dignity. Protect what you built with your effort. Do not let anyone, not even your own family, turn you into victims. And if you have to make difficult decisions, if you have to confront the people you love, do it. Because living with dignity is better than living with comfort built on betrayal. My son called me a dead weight, humiliated me, conspired against me, and I taught him that actions have consequences. That family is not a license to abuse. That respect is earned, not inherited. And now, 3 years later, as I write these words, I can say that although the relationship will never be what it was, there is something new growing, something smaller, more fragile, but more real, something built on truth, not on obligation. And maybe, just maybe, that is enough. Be